Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens, the Screenwriting Step-by-Step project, episode 230, part 230. I believe it's just starting to rain outside. My name is Glenn Gers. I am coming to you every Monday through Friday at, if I can make it, at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone, to let you look over my shoulder, share my screen as I write a script. I am doing this in order to teach a part of screenwriting that I think is under-taught, which is the day-to-day, line-by-line process of getting the script written. Not to talk about what makes a great script, not to talk about how a script can sell, just to say if you want it to be great, if you want it to sell, you have to actually get it written. And most people sort of skim over that part. It's like, oh, and then you write it. That's not as easy as it looks. So I am going to let you watch me walk through it in case it will help you to see some of the tricks and techniques that I had to learn in my 25-year career writing for TV and movies. And on my way out of that business, I thought I would just show you how it's done in one particular case in case it's useful. This is not the best way, it's not the only way, it's just a way that maybe you can find some stuff to use when you are facing the blank page. That's all it is. That's all anyone can give you. You have to figure out what works for you, because every writer is different. Every project is different. So the thing I like to focus on are tools and techniques and process. Because really, when it comes down to it, the way you solve most creative problems is through your process, through how you approach the problem. There's not a secret answer that's going to always work. There is not a formula that you can always apply, but there is a process that is likely to get you through. This is part of it. This is the stuff I've figured out about that process. So, if you want to know more about the tools, techniques, and tricks that I know, I put them all on my channel in the first 3 playlists. They are called Screenwriting Essentials, Screenwriting Tools, Skills, and Craft, and The Process, Being a Writer. This is where I have made my effort to give you the simplest, most direct, useful bits of advice I can give you. There's no grand unified theory. I don't think there is a grand unified theory of screenwriting, so I just tried to break it down into parts that might be useful parts, tools, techniques, and I labeled each one of those right there in the thumbnail. The title of the thing is what it's about. Genre, flashbacks, dramatic action, anything that you might be working on, check out these playlists, see if there's something that kind of relates, watch them. You'll be surprised how much there is. What I have to tell you, that's where it is. This is just a kind of interesting thing I thought might be helpful to watch me do the work. But the real lessons, the real information, the stuff, the goodies, the useful stuff is in that other playlist. Okay. Hi, 99 Precinct. Hi, Nathan. And yes, Nathan just commented me a question, which we are going to start with because otherwise I'll forget. Nathan, hello, John Frey. Yeah, it is weirdly sweltering and gray and overcast, and yet it's like being inside a hot, wet oven in Los Angeles. Anyway, so yes, indoors, slightly better. Let's talk about Nathan's question, which I seemed... here it is. Okay, Nathan's question. Nathan, since you asked, okay, so he wrote, my novel opens with my characters fleeing my starting location when it's attacked and destroyed. 1. How to balance putting the characters in jeopardy before we know them with my desire to open my story quickly, and 2, how to balance creating a normal so the audience will get to know my character. Let me get myself out of there. Whoa, sorry. With that, trying to figure out how to get this smaller for you. Okay, hold on. There we go. How to balance creating normal so the audience will get to know my characters before my inciting incident, with not wanting to dawdle too long, setting on the stage I'll very shortly burn down. These are excellent questions, and what I like about them is that they're very specific. It's a specific problem. I have a story that I want to start. I know that I want to start it with this character fleeing this place that's being attacked and destroyed. What's the technical thing I can do about this? The first thing I would say is break it down, because it's actually got a lot of hidden parts to these questions, and even within them, a lot of assumptions about things. And that's, I think, my main lesson here, which is, where did I put this? Hold on. Okay. If you get really stuck on a question the assumptions of the question. This is a trick that I found through often. Sometimes I would just get stuck on something and just be, oh my God, like there was no way to get out of this conundrum. The two things were equally impossible because each one of them needed to be attended to. And my point is, maybe some of those things aren't really necessary. Maybe you don't really need to do those things that are really messing you up. Hi, Amina. Hi, Jenny. So let's look at this and question some of these assumptions. For instance, the biggest one I'm going to get to is questioning creating normal, so the audience will get to know my characters before the inciting incident. There we go. So I have strong feelings about this concept. Some teachers and theorists have suggested that it is required or essential to create a normal and then have something happen, the inciting incident, which breaks up that or disorders that normal, and that's what your story is about, is dealing with that. And a lot of them say the point of this of the story is to get back to normal. And hi Edison Gray. My first thought about that is, what? No, not every story is about getting back to normal. That's just not true. That's a story. It's a fine story, but you don't have to tell a story about somebody who has a normal and then something comes along and messes it up and they got to get back to it. That's actually, what's interesting about these theories is they come from assumptions. They come from philosophical issues in which somebody is saying, we desperately need to conserve or return to normal. And honestly, fuck that. Okay. First of all, most people's normal is not great. Very often, we spend our time trying to change our normal to a better normal. So right there, the story becomes about you're creating an unhappiness, which is a problem which needs to be solved. But the other thing is, there is no rule that says the audience are idiots who need to be told, this is how it is, and now we're going to shake it up. They might easily be able to figure out stuff as the story goes along. So therefore, I would say this concept of creating normal is, hi, this is Kitschy. Creating normal is one tactic of writing a story, but it's not necessary. So if you're having trouble balancing that with not wanting to dawdle too long, to setting a stage that'll very shortly burn down, real easy. Don't do it. Okay? You don't have to do that. If you are planning to start with the burning of a city or location, and you're going to then spend the rest of the story. And this is Nathan. I'm glad you're here because you can answer some of my questions about your questions, which will help me answer your question. So the first question is, what is the rest of the story about? Because the truth is, unless the story is about either getting back to or reconstructing or in some way restoring the destroyed location, you don't really need to spend much time on that. That may not be that important. It may be something that you can the things that you need to know about their life before the destruction can often be told in the course of the future, the present, the whatever is happening in your story. If your story is about, let's put it this way, this story characters fleeing a location which is attacked and destroyed, is the beginning of the Aeneid, the epic poem which chronicles the founding of Rome by escaping twins, I believe. It's been a long time since I pretended I had read this in college. I'd never read it. But basically, these characters are they live in Troy. Okay, Troy, as you may know, is destroyed during the Trojan War. By the end of the Trojan War, actually, the end of the Trojan War is the destruction of Troy. Fleeing this destruction of the city are these two brothers, and then we follow their adventures as they go to, and they end up in Italy, where they are found the city of Rome. Okay, so therefore, while you may want to spend some time in Troy, you don't have to. I don't actually remember how the poems, I believe the poem starts like by setting up Troy, or whether it starts in the destruction of Troy, and then as they're going on, they may talk about Troy. But the main thing is, right, okay, so there's no going back. They flee in a vehicle never to return. Therefore, the only value of this place is what it means to them to have lost it. Okay, story takes place in a vehicle, spaceship. Excellent. Okay, so therefore, the issue of the lost place is what it means to the characters after they have lost it. Therefore, what you're looking for really is those things which will be relevant or important to the characters on their journey in the spaceship. And so you don't need to actually spend time putting the audience in that place. You can have the people in the spaceship talking about it, drawing pictures of it, remembering it. There's so many things that even trying to recreate experiences from it. If there used to be a tea shop that they loved, that they used to go to and have a certain kind of tea, and they try and recreate that on the spaceship, these are ways that you might get that. Or and here's the real cool thing: you can just do flashbacks. If you want to get the story started, okay. So let me do. Yes, Remus and Romulus, or Romulus and Remus. My ancient lit class had some purpose. Indeed, we've all got something. Saving someone's life is considered back to normal. Could be. It can be. It depends. Okay, so my point is, the first part of your problem is that you're trying to balance creating this normal with not wanting to dawdle, with wanting to plunge in medias res, as they say, or res, which is Latin for in the middle of things. Like we're getting right into the story and then we'll figure it out. Cool, you can do that. Start the story with them desperately fleeing, and then sometime on the spaceship. Here's the other thing. This is my favorite part of your question, was you're talking about a novel. That's almost anything. You could do anything you want. You could, if you wanted to, start by showing the city in flames or whatever's happening to it, and pause every page or so, and then do a page of memory. Of like you're watching this building fall down, and then you're remembering how you used to shop there, and then you're watching this person, drag their kids out of a hole in the ground, and that hole in the ground used to be a park and whatever, and then you could stop and do like 5 pages of memories, or whatever. Or you could actually start when they're out of the city and thinking they're looking at the wreckage, and then later on in the story, stop and have a flashback of that thing. If it's important, but it may not be important. Who cares? I mean, if the point of the story is the journey and what they're going to, the question becomes, what is the value of the lost place and life? Now, if they have a certain type of life in this lost place, suppose it's a monastery, and they are very otherworldly, they're very philosophical, they're very spiritually based in this monastery. It's very simple in this monastery, okay? um, and they live a very orderly life, which is all about devotion. And now their monastery gets bombed to hell, and they are out in the world, and they have to live in a scabby city full of conflict, and they can't. There is no this disorder. It's post-war. That's the story. Then is, are they trying to find the order in the chaos, or are they in fact going to find the joy in the chaos that was missing in the, it all depends on what story you're telling, what you need to establish when. But the most important thing that you need to think about is, what is the value, what is the story value of the thing that I am struggling over how to spend time with it? Because very often the answer is don't. And then luckily, if you're in a novel, the answer is however you want. You could stop on the third chapter and do a whole chapter set in the past, and no one would blink an eye. Or you can weave it into their memories. That's it, and it could just be parts of paragraphs. If novels are so open and flexible, that you can do whatever you want. So damn lucky. In a screenplay, you have to think about and honestly, in a novel, to a certain extent, depending on the type of novel, because that's the tricky thing. If you're writing James Joyce's Ulysses, and you want to have a chapter that's 50 pages of question and answer, sort of making fun of the catechism, go ahead. If you are trying to tell a story that mimics the storytelling of movies, then you want to watch out for the proportions, because the idea would be that you don't dwell too long on anything. If you're going to talk about the past, you break it up into little pieces, or you think about a single specific set of items that are compact enough to convey your larger thing. Those are the ways that screen stories have to deal with that problem. Novels doesn't. You can stop and go for 100 pages on the town that's gone. But what really it sounds like is, doesn't matter, because how much of the issues are past related? How much are them are going to be played out in the spaceship? So that's really the most important thing I think to ask, is that when you are looking at a problem, and you're like, I honestly can't figure out what to do, because I'm stuck with this conflict. Question the assumptions creating the conflict. That's the biggest lesson I would take from this. I mean, the technical lesson is fun. Do you or do you not need to establish anything before the story begins? The other thing about establishing things at the beginning is, you would be surprised how little you can establish at any given moment. Establishing is very often the sign of a amateur storyteller. There really is no establishing. There is storytelling from the very first sentence, and in that storytelling, you are unfolding or building layers. That's what storytelling is. Establishing is clunk, clunk, clunk. Okay, we're all going to sit here and wait while we get this laid out so that you understand what's going on. Okay, the story will begin. And while that may have worked, honestly, it almost never worked. So I can't think of a good story that begins that way. But please, if somebody can tell me, let me know. I just don't buy that. Hello, Donna. Hello, Bob. Hello, Jean. My feeling about starting a story is, the moment the story begins, you meet one thing, one bit, one character, one moment, and then from that you add, you develop. And if this is a bunch of people looking back at their burned city, and they have to get to the spaceship and get off the planet because their whole world is gone, then the first thing you establish is, people on a spaceship or getting on a spaceship. Okay, how about that? People getting on a spaceship in a burning world. Okay, already I am asking questions as an audience. Who are the people? Why is the world burning? Where are they going to go? Okay, this is the best, the best thing you could start with, because then all you need to do is build layers of these are the people. This is the person. This is a conflict between these people. Oh, this is why they, But you don't need to know everything at once. Nobody knows everything at once. We only know one thing at a time. Especially in stories, we only know one thing at a time. That's the story of stories. Lord of the Rings is an example of establishing. Yeah, no, yes and no. Okay, I'm trying to remember because I keep thinking of I reread The Hobbit more recently, so I'm going to talk about The Hobbit instead of Lord of the Rings, because in a sense The Hobbit is the beginning of that. But let's look at the beginning of The Hobbit. Okay, I believe that the way it's actually. Hang on just a second. I will be right back. Okay, Hobbit. We got the Hobbit here. Now, okay, let's look at this. Okay, first part of The Hobbit, Chapter 1, An Unexpected Party. Okay, not, this is the Shire, here's this place, there's a map. There's a map in case you're interested, but most of us look at the map and say, well, I'm going to understand this map later when I have found out what all these things are. You don't memorize the map before you turn the page. There is a little one-page intro about the world, okay? And it's saying, this is a story from long ago, languages, the types of people. It's a footnote. You honestly don't need it. I'm sorry. I do need these to read. Okay, so let's look at the beginning of The Hobbit. Okay, in a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Okay, boom, there lived a hobbit. We now have a character. We have the main, not a nasty, dirty, wet hole filled with the ends of worms and an oozy smell, but nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit down in. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. Okay, already we are in the story. There is a particular hobbit that we are going to meet. This hobbit is trying to have a quiet evening, I believe, and all of a sudden all these dwarves start showing up, and Gandalf shows up, and he says, "Hey, listen, we've got this issue. There's this mission we are all going to have to go on." And by the end of that chapter, they stop to explain things. A lot of the explanation is because they are explaining to this hobbit why he has to go on this mission with them. I don't remember all the details of that, but I do know that the whole point about this is exactly that you start with a piece, a person, a moment. This poor hobbit is having his evening destroyed by an unexpected party. So that's exactly the opposite from establishing a world. That would start by saying, there is the Shire, and there are these dwarves, and there is this, and they took all this time, and then say, okay, now that you've got the whole layout, and there's this ring, and there's Mordor, now let's meet this guy. I believe the movie of Lord of the Rings starts with an explanation of where the ring came from, but that's not establishing a world, that's establishing the ring, okay? And the ring was a creation of characters for a purpose of power, and the war that created that ring and the destruction of the civilization around it and the remaining power of the ring, that's not establishing a world, that's setting up the center of the story by saying there's a war going on over this power. Okay? So none of that is establishing anything. It's getting to the story right away. And there are lots of different. You could start the story, at the moment of what are they going to do with the ring, or you could start the story by when Frodo is born. Those are all possible. So you can start stories anywhere. Everything is a choice, and every choice has a price. Everything is a choice, and every choice has a price. So therefore, you can say, I'm going to start with this big war battle scene, and they chose that because, well, we are spending $300 million on a movie. We need to convince people that it's worth sitting through. Let's get some vivid action going, and then we get to the ring. Ooh, ooh, ooh! There's this, the stakes are high. We have set up that there is this super powerful thing that people are going to spend the next 9 hours struggling over. Cool. That's a good storytelling choice in that way. It's also possible to have started the story with at the beginning of that making of the ring thing and taken 2 hours to get to the war. Less workable in the screen world, more workable in a novel world. That can work. Okay. Anyway, The Expanse, that started as a game first, a political war space game, could also be First the World. No, nope, nope. I don't believe that. I believe that. Now, the thing about a game is, I have never played the game, so I don't know how it's laid out. But my guess is, in almost all games, narratives, anything else, part of the consciousness of the author is to, how can I hook the reader or the viewer to want to care about this story and keep watching it. And they make a calculated decision. What is the thing that these people are coming to this story for? And you try to give them a sense that they are going to get that. Now, that often means that people throw in these set pieces at the beginning. But it also could mean introducing the character who will carry through the tone or attitude or whose story we're going to care about at the beginning. The thing about games is that the design often has to do with the teaching the game as you go along, so that there's steps that you play through. But the point is, in a game, you are engaged by the fact that you have to do things right away. And even then, they try and make it interesting. They don't just like say, okay, move here, move there. They try and make that narratively and atmospherically related. Okay, sorry, going to briefly catch up on the chat. I have a story where a character kills me. Okay. Okay, hold on. Let me get to this, because this is a whole other question, and I will need to think about that. Thank you. They are Warby Parker. These are from Warby Parker, which is available online, so that no matter where you are, they'll send you the glasses. I can't remember which ones they are. They have a range of glasses. They'll send you 5 pair, try them on, send the ones back you don't like. Warby Parker. I'm advertising. Okay, let's just do this. Let's do it. Warby Parker. Okay. Boom. Warby Parker. That's it. All right. So, random question. Do you think writing a story with time travel is harder than writing a story without it? I will get to that too. We are apparently doing Ask Me Anything, which is cool. I'm good. Yeah. And it's actually interesting. I'm working on a video about world building, and one of the main points I have to make about world building is you don't build the world separate from the story. You build the world as it will be experienced by the audience, the reader, the viewer. In other words, if you want something in this world, it's got to be part of the story, because that's the only time that the audience is going to experience it. If you decide to build a world where there's a swamp off at the edge of the city and no character ever goes there, how would we know it's there? I suppose you could go up and do a map and say, oh, there's a swamp over there, and it's really cool. But unless the characters are going to interact with the world, though it doesn't exist. There's probably a philosophical name for that. But essentially what it means is the audience's perception is all they know of the world. And so therefore, if they don't engage, now you could in theory start by just showing, here's this, here's that. my guess is most people in the audience are going to say, why are we looking at this? Now you can drag that out for a little while, but at a certain point the audience is going to say, we expected you to tell us a story. We expect a certain storytelling competence, a certain storytelling consciousness on the part of the author. And they will say, it's boring. You would say, it's interesting. Look, this is an interesting world. Why aren't you interested? People are interested to the extent that it involves the story. There are tricks you can tell. You could have a narrator who says, I'm going to tell you about a world. There's this part, there's that part. But after a few minutes of that, people are going to say, why are we in this world? What's the story? Admittedly, there are forms where you don't have to do that. But for most narrative, it is very, very difficult to tell, to step away from the story and simply lay out information. It can be done. There are things that do it, but what I would say is you need to think about how the audience is going to then be working on that in order to stay engaged. Okay. I don't know about the Silmarillion, so I'm going to say, cool, okay. I don't know. Okay, I immediately started, what kind of spaceship, working class, yacht, warship, where they would be fleeing, what was the ship? Exactly. Yes, the Expanse. Cool. Yeah, so that the answer is, as far as starting a story, because that was the specific that you get into, is that the important thing about starting a story is fairly soon you want to engage us with at least some of the people involved. Now, I am not going to say that you have to meet the main characters at the beginning. That is not true. You do have to meet characters who are somewhat related to something that will be important later, in the sense that they may be the people whose death creates they die and they become mulch, and out of that mulch grows flowers, and out of that flowers comes a town, and out of that town comes the hero. Sure, maybe you can do that. More likely, you are going to want, even if you're going to tell the story of many, many characters, you're going to want to start with the engagement of particular people with a particular problem, which is why I always come back to these questions. Because while it's true that these questions are about the story as a whole, it's also true about any moment of the story, any scene, any, frankly, line or sentence. You're going to ask yourself, who is this scene about? Who are we watching when we meet these people going onto the spaceship? If all we're seeing is a group of anonymous people getting onto a spaceship, very soon we are going to say, who in that crowd do we care about? Who is it about? And then, what do they want? Do they want to take over the spaceship? Do they want to survive the brutal taking over of the spaceship? Do they want to go back home? What do they want? And then, why can't they get it? That's the reason that I make that a kind of important thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Is because I just keep finding myself coming back to it as the key to telling a story. I do not say it's the only way. I do not say it is the formula for success. I just say I can't figure out how you tell a story without it. And the thing I want to talk about this is, I mentioned there's this book by this guy named George Saunders. And the great thing for you, Nathan, about this is he is talking about writing fiction. He is not talking about writing scripts. He is giving the subtitle is "In which 4 Russians give a master class on writing, reading, and life." The point about this book, I'll just also put it here. This book is, I've only read half of it so far. I just read it in bits and pieces sometimes. But what this is this guy named George Saunders, who's just an amazingly good writer and an amazingly good teacher, is that he said, the way I teach writing is I take these 4 long short stories by master 19th century Russian writers, and I analyze how they work in order to teach some basic principles of how storytelling works. Just the first section of this book blew my mind in how accurately it talks about how you introduce a little bit and then you layer in more and more and more and develop and create a story. I cannot emphasize enough or urge you enough to check this out if you are interested in storytelling, but especially if you're interested in writing fiction. It's just really good. Okay, should get a commission from the Warby Parkers. Okay, hi Dan. I'm glad. Yeah, this session is interesting. Okay. Um, Yesterday I was playing with Midjourney's AI. One of my results is the idea of an entire world with dozens of characters. Building the characters with Midjourney. Great, that is excellent. But the whole point about using Midjourney is it's a tool by which you are gathering technical skills that you may not personally have in order to visualize things that you are in your head creating. That's the value of that. But once again, what you're saying here is inspired me with an idea of an entire world with dozens of characters. Now, as soon as you say characters, you are saying a person with something they want and something that's getting in the way of that, and that they have to do something. That's the definition of a character. Okay, if they are just a baker who's very surly, they're just a type. They're not a character yet because they're not doing anything. The important thing about a character is that they are a character in a story. They are not a character as in you can look at a picture. A picture of a person is not a character. Okay, a job or a personality trait is not a character. A character is a thing that happens in a story. And that's the important thing to remember when you're working on world building and character creation is they only exist in terms of a story. As soon as you give them a problem or a goal, you are making them into a character, and that is how you will define them and how the audience will understand them. Okay. She-Hulk, Amazon, Lord of the Rings, Disney, Star Wars often seems like they have lazy writing or disrespectful to the canon. Any take on what this might be? Too much business. Okay, this is another. Boy, we're just asking some big questions. Let me think about that one, and then I will get back to you. Adding to Bob Power's questions, why aren't students hiring better proven writers? Okay, these are interesting questions. We may either go longer than an hour, or I may have to move some of these elsewise to another time. Guarding the world, is you killed Biden, Putin, does it really matter? The countries will hunt you down if they know who did it. Right. Okay, that's a separate thing. Let me just. I assume. Okay, do you think so? Okay, just so we're debating. Went back and looked like, it's a serious collection. Frankly, a lot of them don't hold up like they did 12-year-olds. Yes, that is important. Also, every single power has a head that will pop out after you kill one head. So, Hydra. The question is, does killing Putin do so? Yes. Okay. I agree. This is C. Nolan's Batman, Tim Burton, Wolverine movies are my favorites. Honestly, I enjoyed Logan. Cool. Okay. Well, what we're getting into now is what you like. Whether or not something you like is good is actually a larger question because you like it and it feels that it fulfills your definition of good. It doesn't mean that's empirically this is good, this is bad. Why are these bad? They may be bad because you don't like them, but they may be good to someone else. So I'm a little iffy on these are bad, but we'll talk about why they have the qualities they have which you don't like, and that's a separate question that we can talk about. Okay. Yes, Gogol is quite a great writer. And okay, um, I heard that once the character is the story, but I don't think it's accurate. The reason it's not accurate is just because it's not clear. um, in a sense, the character is the story. In other words, if you are once you say who is it about, what do they want, what are they doing about it, the character is the story because what they are trying to do becomes the center of the story. Um, the problem is that you can't just then say like this is the character is this, they want this, now you're done with the story. Um, I think that the importance of that is what they're saying is we need to follow people in order to make stories. You don't have to have just one. Their story can be, especially in a novel, complex and interwoven with other stories, or in sections, which each one has its own ending, and then it moves on to the next. There's lots and lots of good things. Um, I think yes, the writers on comic book movies are better than you think. They have a lot of masters to answer to. That is very true. Hi, Ray. Okay, let me go back a couple of questions here and see if I can answer. Okay, so let me go back to good content. Your question was: I have a story where a character. Let me see if I can find this. Okay, I have a character. I have a story whose character kills the main world leaders, including the presidents of the USA, Russia, China. What troubles will I face? Well, do you mean like, are you afraid that like people will be mad at you? Um, or because story trouble, none that I know of. I mean, you'll have the problem of you have to convincingly create a character who can get away with these murders, but that's cool. Um, the problems you will, the trouble you will face is what story are you telling? The fact that this character kills these world leaders is not a story. That's just an incident. It could be the end of the story, could be the beginning of the story. Like this could be a story that starts with all the character killing off all three at once. You know, they're at a conference and they nuke the conference and boom, there's no world leaders. Lauren very properly points out the consequences of that are not necessarily very grave in a world changing situation because all of these countries will have rules of succession in which someone else will take over. So therefore, I don't know, unless that's not that's not enough of a story problem. On the other hand, the story could be this person has been challenged. If they don't kill all three world leaders, they're going to their granddaughter is going to die. They're being held hostage. So the question becomes, can they do it? And when they do it, they get reunited with their granddaughter. This is a tremendously bitter and cynical story to say it's okay to kill off three world powers because I'm getting my kid back. But trolley problem. Maybe that's what you want to do. That's the story you want to tell. I don't know. I do know that you need to figure out what your what the purpose of this extraordinary event or series of events is in your story. My character also kills. Well, this character is a mass murderer. Will the CIA blacklist? Won't I ever be able to travel to the USA? I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, unless you like put out specific credible plans to kill these people, they're just gonna they're not no, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Superpowers and all right, well then you're telling a superpower story. First of all, the CIA will not care because you don't have superpowers, and therefore I hope, and if you do have them, I really hope you use them for something better than this. Okay, if you have superpowers and this is what you're using them for, I say think again, sir. All right, so that the answer is, as far as the practical consequences of telling a superpower story, um, uh, don't worry about it. Okay, next question. Random question from Edison Gray. Do you think writing a story with time travel is harder than writing a story without it? Okay, it depends on what's hard for you. Because it's not inherently hard. Like for people who are very good at logic puzzles, no, it won't be hard at all. If it's what's hard about telling a time travel story is A, coming up with something that hasn't been done 1,000 times before at this point, because there's just a lot of time travel stories. And B, you have to make some decisions about your understanding of time travel, because here's the secret about time travel: it does not exist. So therefore, you're not going to get it wrong. It's not like somebody just goes, "Oh, when I was time traveling, that's not what happened." You're going to run into the problem of, you need to decide: is this the kind of time travel where you can alter the past? And if you alter the past, what will that do to the present? And you get into the whole grandfather problem of, what if you kill your own parents or cause your own parents to die? Wouldn't you cease to exist? In which case, wouldn't you have not been able to do that? There's a lot of questions about, and I would suggest researching the philosophical and physical problems of time travel to decide why you, once again, it always comes down to the same thing. What story are you telling? Why are you doing time travel? And ideally, you have some message or emotion or thought that you are trying to convey with the time travel. You are trying to say, love is so powerful that it defeats time. Or you are trying to say, stop thinking about the past. Russian Doll. The second season of Russian Doll, just watched it. I like it a lot. I can understand why other people might not. But it's working over the question of, not only should you, but can you change the past? And possibly the message of your story is, we should all spend all of our time trying to change the past. Or, you can't change the past, you have to deal with the past and move into the future. Two separate stories. You've got to decide which is important to you. Then, whether it's hard to write a time travel story entirely depends on how your particular storytelling mind works. If you are the kind of person who has a hard time making an outline, yes, that will be hard. It will be harder because you're dealing with time travel. On the other hand, if you like time travel stories, you're probably going to do fine with that. So it's not inherently harder or easier, because different things are hard or easy for different people. Okay. All right. Now we get into the business questions. Bob Powers is saying, She-Hulk, Amazon Lord of the Rings, Disney Star Wars often seem like they have lazy writing or disrespectful to the canon. Any take on what this might be? Okay. Point one. Lazy writing and disrespectful to the canon are actually two separate problems. Whether or not you think that the canon should be respected is a value judgment. Some people would say, once you've got the canon, there's no point in doing more of it. You might as well try something very new in that universe or in that style. And therefore, disrespecting or even reimagining and starting your own new canon, it's a legit move. You may like it, you may not. It depends on whether or not you believe that the value is, because the thing about the canon is, if you are saying this is the unbreakable story which we are working with, you either have to retell it, or you need to fill in the parts of it that weren't already used. And those are all interesting challenges, but that's not the only thing you can do with a story. So that. Now, as far as lazy writing, yeah, sometimes. It depends. Part of the problem is, with all of these things, you were talking about very effects-heavy, big-budget stories. And that means that the amount of time given to people talking, to characters being developed, to the values of storytelling that are not visual are diminished. You've got to have time for the set pieces and the visuals. That cuts down on the amount of good writing you can do. Now, some people would say the good writing is, you're imagining a cool chase scene and there's not going to be a word, but wow, how cool it is. The problem with that is, as we hit content overload, as things become easier to make, just technically, it gets harder to create something interesting and original um, within the values that the businesses are trying to maintain. They're saying, like, we need to essentially give the audience the same thing they had before, but a new version. And that is really, really hard to do well. Most times when companies or artists say, I want to do this thing that was deeply beloved and I want to do it again, but kind of different, you have the problem that the magic of the first time is unlikely to work as well the second time. But if you don't do the same thing, then you are breaking the canon. So it's a really, really tricky issue. The question of why aren't the studios hiring better, proven writers? I guarantee you they are hiring top-notch writers, and they are almost all proven in many ways. Nobody's going to put what I think Lord of the Rings, Amazon's Lord of the Rings is, I believe, the most expensive thing ever filmed. Do you believe that they were cheaping out on the writers? I guarantee you they were not like, oh, let's get some film students to do this. I promise you, they were looking at a lot of writers' samples and they were saying, these people do what we want. The question is, what they want may be what you consider bad writing. Then there is simply the problem that with anything this large, you get an enormous hierarchy of people who have opinions. And it is almost impossible to do good creative work by committee. The few times that has worked, the committee has been very carefully organized, usually with a very small group or even individual running it. Marvel and Kevin Feige had a good run. I don't know how long it lasts. Pixar had a good run. There are certain times when a large group of people can be organized to tell a story, guided by a couple of individuals who are both talented and lucky that their thing works. Anyway, so that the answer is, I guarantee you, the problem of writing, of the quality of writing on big budget stuff is not that they are cheaping out. In fact, the problem is probably that they are hiring too many highly skilled writers, and they all have different opinions. And so you're getting these jumbled, mediocre messes where they take a piece of this and a piece of that. And because, unfortunately, it is a business, and the business requires us to make money, and no one knows what's going to make money in the arts. You might think you do. Like there are always going to be parts of time when some company or other is going to say, we know what's going to make money. And they may get lucky for a moment. But the truth is, they don't. Okay? No one knows, because for the one thing about the arts that is unbreakably true is it's always changing, and different people feel differently about different parts. That's so it's not like, McDonald's. Oh, this type of burger, if stamped through this factory at this weight and cooked at this temperature, will pay off because enough people will buy it that it will become profitable. Cool. That does not work with art. Okay. I have not been reading the comments, so I'm going to just keep moving down. Let's see. Okay. All right. Good content is my story is based in anarchy and communism and stuff. Cool. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's good. I think we need more stories of communism and anarchy and stuff. I worry that governments and big hires will see it wrong. They are not afraid of us. They are not afraid of artists, honestly. Even murderers manifesto. So yeah, no one cares, truly. You could write. There have been some marvelous communist and anarchist art that have proselytized beautifully for the various philosophies. Nobody's getting taken out over that. Killing a whole lot of people That honestly, I'm not sure that one of the things that anarchists and any zealots have going against them is, while they may believe that um, that violent action will sweep the masses up in behind them into, oh yeah, we want to do that. A lot of people don't actually like violence, not big fans of violent overthrow, and so therefore, yeah, you may just not be working on on a principle that the world is going to take up. Um, okay, yeah, I've heard Paper Girls is good. I don't know. First season of Russian Doll is deeply beloved by me. Da, 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 da. Okay, good content. We are doing too much about your story. I'm having fun, but I can't go on. What do you think about the Elon Musk murdering him? The law. I am not a lawyer. I do not know the answers. My guess is that you can tell a story about a public figure being murdered. I just don't see the point. Please don't. I mean, yeah, sure. You're going to. There is a what's the word? There's a shock value, um, and in conversation it might be fun. Um, But the truth is, first of all, yeah, someone like Elon Musk, you might personally piss him off, and he might not legally come after you, but he might illegally come after you. So, yeah, who knows? Why would you do that? Why would you take on when you could just make up a character like Elon Musk, make them interesting, make your character interesting, tell an interesting story? That's the point. The point is not, can I kill a famous person in fiction? Yeah, probably. Who cares? Fiction is about, unless you're going to tell a fictionalized version which gives us insight into these people, what are you wasting our time for? There you go. Um, a business question. Why did they pay so much for Lord of the Rings if they are changing so much? They have a lot of money, and companies with a lot of money sometimes lose a sense of value. And therefore, they feel it's completely fine to buy a $10,000 handbag or a $500 million intellectual property. The answer is they were desperate to find what they felt was a large audience built in to a universe. They just wanted to buy a universe. The answer is, will that go well for them? Probably not. They are probably coming in on the tail end of the interest in that universe, and the odds are that a large percentage of the people who liked the universe before they bought it are going to be annoyed by the changes. And the odds are that the people who would be interested in the originality that they may be bringing the changes need it in a new universe. That's once again the secret of art. You can't just keep selling the same thing over and over. Art does not work that way. Um, yes, it would. Yeah, but it's not about money. It's not about money. Okay. Um, oh, great! I'm glad. Meg and Lorianne are fabulous. Screenwriting Life is great. This will be available as soon as I'm done. It appears magically. Okay. Um, Isn't it also the case that studios do remakes just for money? They even fire great directors because they don't want great ideas to meddle with money. That is an oversimplification and a misunderstanding of what happens. First of all, money and great directors are not mutually exclusive. Very often, a great director will take the money and make more money with it. Yay! Um, uh, do the studios do remakes just for money? Yes. The studios do everything just for money. Okay? That is the absolute simple answer. The studios are in the business of releasing narratives in order to make money. If they do not honestly care what that is, there is always a debate within artistic businesses of how much art do we care about compared to how much do we want to make money. And the answer is always the money has got to be first and foremost in those businesses' minds, because survival instinct. They need the money to survive. But the proportions of artistic values versus profit values has actually changed. The and this is not exclusive to the movie and TV business. All businesses in the past 40 or 50 years have become more and more consumed with the concept that the only value is shareholder value. In other words, that the value of anything is the amount of money that shareholders make, not, for instance, the amount of money that the people making the work make, and certainly not the value that the customer is getting. That's a genuine problem of our civilization as we know it. Is that a problem for narrative storytelling? Yeah, to the extent that there was more room when the profit need was less, to be able to carve out an area where you're like, I will make a little less profit in order to win an Academy Award, in order to feel that I am doing some good for society, in order to whatever it is, whatever their values are. There was a time, and there may yet again be a time, when people would say maximizing profits for the investors is not the only value involved. We are at a bad spot for that. And so, yes, you will find that more and more people in the narrative business are more and more trying to figure out basically Moneyball of narratives. Like, oh, well, IP will do it. Pretty soon, someone is going to recognize that IP only lasts so long. And then you need new IP. IP, by the way, is intellectual property, is in universes. The universe thing is going to wear out. You know, when big budget movies were happening there was a sort of escalation of budgets in the 70s and 80s, which was followed by some companies saying, you know, what if we were to make more movies at lower budgets, and therefore they need to actually make, you know, if we make 20 low budget movies and one of them takes off, that will pay for the rest of them. And that's a better gamble than making one big budget and it has to pay for itself. That's a philosophical question. I like that question because it means more art. Currently, many companies are in the bigger is better. But that has nothing to do with firing a director because they don't want the great ideas to meddle with money. Many of them believe the only great ideas are the ones that make money. So therefore, they're just saying, I want to make money. Okay. Edited Ches. Hi, Ches. Edited the red. I don't know if I'm overthinking, but I can't tell if I truly had a vision for it as one big piece. How do you learn from a mistake if it's something to do with just getting it? I'm not sure if I understand. How do you learn from a mistake if it's something to do with just getting it? In other words, the mistake was that you were just trying to get it done, and therefore you didn't have a vision for it? It does, like I could just say, I don't know if I'm overthinking it. Yeah, it sounds like you're overthinking it. You know, to me, the answer would be make 5 more shorts. Exactly what I was just saying. You are more likely to learn from doing this 5 times and learning from doing it differently each time, trying it to do differently. Or maybe just, honestly, you may just need practice. It might be just that simple. Your first thing is never going to be very great because even if you are inspired to genius, your technical skills are iffy. So the answer is, yes, you are overthinking it. The answer is practice and experience. And how do you learn from a mistake? Whatever it is that you think was the mistake, try doing something different than that. You know, that's just that simple. If you think the mistake was, I didn't have a vision, next time, start with a vision. If you don't have a vision, stop worrying about it. Just do whatever entertains you. You are overthinking it. That's it. The other thing is show it to people and ask them. That very important step of this process. You will not always like the answer you get. Not all the answers will be right. But if you show it to a bunch of different people, a bunch of different times, you'll begin to learn from that. Okay. Okay, by the way, no more questions. We're going too long. If I kill my protagonist at some point in the story for the plot to move on to a climax point and push the other characters, is it lazy writing or cheap? That is a fascinating question because if you kill your protagonist, the answer is always going to come down to the same thing. Well, what's your story about? If the story is about how the protagonist's death has an effect on other people, aka Jay Gatsby or Jesus Christ, then cool. Then it's not lazy or cheap. If you're just killing them off because you're tired of them, or just because you thought it would be a cool thing that would give a climax, yeah, that might be lazy and cheap. It would entirely depend on what the purpose is of killing your protagonist. And just to remember, if you kill your protagonist, who's it about? Who else is there? For instance, in The Great Gatsby, and spoiler alert, I apologize if those of you do not know it, but there's a character named Nick who knows Jay Gatsby, and part of the story is about the effect that Jay's life has on Nick. And in a sense, that's really the story of the novel. Okay. Yay, yes, I am truly a jewel of the similar good example in a movie, please tell me about them. You mean where like the protagonist dies, and other people are moved by that? I kind of don't want to give those away because I'm going to do some serious spoilerizing. But there are. It's a legitimate story. Yeah, maybe too many proven writers, perhaps your point. Hierarchy of opinions committees. So that is true. Thank you. I would consider it. The Departed by Martin Scorsese. Okay. All these business talks. Crime fiction. Yes, The Departed is crime fiction. The Departed. It's a story about corrupt cops. That's why I wonder why they don't hire great writers. Because in the past, art was better. But now it is what. See, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's not a fact. That's an opinion. In the past, art was better in some ways. In other ways, in the present, art is better. Now it is watered for profit. Not true. Every movie studio in the history of movie studios has been purely for profit. And honestly, in the past, people were looking at those old movies when they were new and saying, "This is crap. Why aren't they doing better? Why aren't they doing plays? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that?" And famously, the great writers of the past, let's say Fitzgerald and Faulkner, great American novelists who went to Hollywood to work there for the money. Let's not kid yourself. None of them were saying, "Oh man, I want to give up novels and write screenplays." They were saying, "My novels are not making me enough money. I need money. Hollywood has the money, and they will pay me because I got a fancy name." Raymond Chandler also. Tons of writers have done that and been crushed and destroyed by it. So it's not that they're great. There were great writers in the past. Billy Wilder was a great writer. Preston Sturges was a great writer. There are many, many great writers in the past. There were also many great producers, and there are many great writers now. There truly are. I just don't buy this. The past, the art was better. I believe that partly we like the things that affect us in our youth, and whatever that is, we tend to define the artistic universe around the things that we liked, that first taught us about art, that taught us about the power of stories. And opened our mind to the ways that stories can work. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Shareholder first is not sustainable. I will take a stand on that. It's a bad idea. It sucks. We're just trying to do our best to change it. Um, uh, Deadpool was a risk, but people loved it. It was more based in art. Since then, the movie has changed. No, no, the movie industry has not substantially changed since Deadpool. The movie industry has substantially changed since Casablanca. But the movie industry is in the past. I don't know when Deadpool was not even 10 years ago. Um, Deadpool was just part of the current universe. The thing that made Deadpool um, daring was that they were trying to break certain formulaic rules, as in the main one was simply the amount of R-rated material that was acceptable because they were afraid of not being able to sell tickets to people under 18. And it was just that simple. And what they discovered is, A, people under 18 managed to get into R-rated movies, and B, people were so excited by the breath of fresh air that it made up for whatever elementary school audience they lost. Okay, so let's. Okay, don't you think that streaming seems to be bringing back the middle class mid-budget? I would like to think that, and I do hope that that is true. I do not know. It will depend on how competitive the streaming services get to each other. But yes, like right now, HBO is in danger of getting wiped out by what's his name, the Discovery Channel guy. Who knows? Um, okay, all right. No more comments. Stop the comments. I think the problem with movies nowadays is not bad writing; it's less competition. Um, technically, all new movies are either HBO or Netflix Prime before there were more sources of movies and more competition, more quality. I am not sure if that's true because, in some ways, although there are fewer buyers, they are buying a lot, and there are also a lot of upstart companies. Like the thing is, you guys are, if you're not taking into account Hulu and epics and there's little, and I have a friend, I actually know a couple of people who have written for Roku. Okay, I have to find out how to sign up for Roku. I don't have a Roku device, but you can sign up for the Roku channel on your computer, and I will have to watch their content that way. But the point is, there are there are places where things are developing. Um, will that get wiped out by the massive uh, monopoly of the streaming services? Probably not. Just like when there were movie studios, okay, in the beginning of movie art, when movies were just being discovered, there were dozens and dozens, like literally hundreds of movie companies, and they came and went like flies, and they were all struggling to figure out what this thing was, this movie thing, and there were no rules, and it was slowly but surely, as it became more and more exciting and profitable, companies became larger. They formed the studios. They eventually locked down the business by owning the theaters. Just like the streaming services are distribution companies, okay? Streaming services are looking for stuff to put on their channel. They do not want to make stories, they want stuff to put on their channel. By the way, if baking shows and live executions get enough people to their channel, they will lower the amount of stories they tell. They don't care. They just want people to subscribe to their channel. Just like the movie theaters, the movie studios bought, actually, they were bought by, the studios were owned by distribution chains that owned the theaters. They owned the studios in order to have something to put in the theaters, not the other way around. Okay? So they figured out at that time the game was a constant churn of certain genres. You always had a western. You always had a romance. You always had a mystery. They had certain things, and they made sure. Oh, we need a bunch of each of these things in our monthly rotation, and they churned them out. But there was nowhere else to show a movie. Slowly but surely, independent film broke the monopoly and found ways, but there was a legal requirement, and there will come an antitrust against monopolies in streaming services. Um, but the money is always going to go to the mass entertainment. And a lot of the people who were frustrated by the quality of movies in the studio era, they went to TV. TV was sort of the off-brand, the runt to the litter. They were the TV when it began was where you could do interesting, exciting, and experimental stuff for a very brief while. At the beginning of TV, there was some remarkable work being done in live TV. Then slowly but surely, the studios bought TV, and it actually opened up the studio system. So my answer is there is less competition for that top 10 slots, but there's actually more material and more ways to get to it and more ways to get it out there than there ever was before. Um, Not that I just don't get film. No, I don't believe that you just don't get film. You made a film. Just don't worry about it. You made a film. You are already on the right road. The point is, why are you making one film into the test of whether or not you should be a filmmaker? You already are a filmmaker. Just keep making films, and you'll see what you do well and what you don't do well. Nobody does everything well. Don't worry about it. Just keep doing it. There is no test to prove that you should or should not be an artist. Okay? The question is simply, are you doing it? If you are doing it, you are an artist. Okay. AI generated content. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening in the tech world and the business world, which is troubling. I believe that the human spirit and the creative spirit will continue to break through as it always has in times of various forms of monopoly and repression. Since the beginning of time, the human creative process tends to fight back. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, yeah, AI is provided. Yes, I have no doubt that AI will eventually write some good stuff. Thank you, Pedro. It's very nice to meet you, and I appreciate that. Um, uh, yeah, AI. I'm actually going to do a live stream about AI at some point. AI can do good work. Can it do as good a work as a person? Maybe. I don't know. But even if it could, right now it's a tech fad where somebody will say, "Oh, it's so cool. We have AIs." First of all, that's a selling point. Look, this work was created by an AI. Oh, cool. If you just put that work up and said, "Here, there's a work of art," some people would like it, some people wouldn't. But the fact that it's an AI is causing this freakish, faddish stir over things that otherwise would not get attention. The question will be, when you create an AI that's good enough to be actually creative, the whole purpose of AI would be to control it. And my guess is, if they were to create an AI that could write creatively, they wouldn't be able to control it. And if they were able to control it, they wouldn't know what to ask for. Because once again, it comes down to the main problem. If you could say, I now have an AI that will do whatever I want creatively, what do you tell it to do? Make a story that everyone likes? Nobody knows what that is. And whatever that is, it's going to change next week. So that's why I'm not too worried about AI. I think AI is interesting. Is it going to take away our jobs? To a certain extent. I just don't. I don't feel like the art. That's the major threat of the art business. The major threat of the art business is shareholder value. Okay. I don't think art could be wiped out by rules. I agree. I agree about that. It may go off the side. It may go onto the internet away from the streaming services. It may be here on YouTube, although YouTube is a big company, and I think they may be. But there may be mini YouTubes that get invented and people get creative on them. You are welcome. Yes, I am exhausted. All right. Okay, every time I get to watch you live, I get so much value for free. Let me know. Invite me. Your virtual coffee or something. Thank you. No, you're good. We're good. I do not want tips. We're good. I'm gonna to take the weekend. Let me just quickly check my calendar. Am I here on Monday? Yeah, yeah. I'll be here on Monday. Okay, groovy. Good talking to you. Go write something.